Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Carry-On Friends, the Caribbean American experience. And I have Franklyn joining me for this episode. I can't wait to get into it. Franklyn, how are you feeling? What's going on?
I didn't know my name was Franklyn, but I'm very happy to be here.
So what is your name? Franklyn?
There you go. Thanks for the invitation. Pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. So why don't you tell the community of friends a little bit about who you are, Caribbean country you represent, and a little bit about the work you do.
Well, I'm from Jamaica, the best Caribbean country out there.
I mean.
So I'm heavily involved with the Juici Patties franchise, one of the franchisees here in the States, and tasked with the heavy but happy burden of carrying that brand here.
Wonderful. So before we get into the juicy part, talk to me about growing up in Jamaica. What was your first patty experience since we are, talking about all things good about Jamaican patty life and things?
I think it came through the umbilical cord, really. I mean,
When mommy was healing, she was peckish for something.
I
She,
mean, I think the first few cells, I mean, there's had to be some ground beef in there somewhere.
that is a good one. That is a good one.
Um, no, all right, seriously. I remember my grandfather used to give me 50 cents to buy lunch going to school, and the thing to do was patty, a cocoa bread, and a box juice or a sky juice, right? We had a Mr. Rowe with his hand cart and crushed ice and the syrup, and it was like orange or red, green. Well,
Or all three.
or all three, rainbow. That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. So when I got older, it occurred to me, where does Mr. Rowe wash his hands? So yeah, I started to stick to the box juice more after that.
I think at one point, we all go back to that recollection in primary school where all the food vendors, and you're like, but wait, where was the bathroom? But
Where's the bathroom? Creamy, creamy. Hold on.
yes, yes, yes. No, you're bringing me back, especially in this idea of the lunch money. So when Juicy came to Mobe, I was in high school, so you can't leave campus until after school. So so you save up your lunch money because afterwards you'll get some hot patty, and that's
Hmm.
what you did. So
Hmm.
and that's also the social place where everybody hung out and had a good time. So interesting.
Hmm.
So let's go back a little bit and talk to me a little bit about your background in terms of, you left from Jamaica, you came where, and how did you get into business?
Wow, yeah. So I came here because my mom wanted me to go to a good Christian school with my uncle, a good Adventist pastor. So I was in Tennessee at Southern College, and then came to Florida, finished a degree in computer science and math. Got into software engineering. My dad was an entrepreneur, like most Jamaicans, right? And so that was in my blood, and I kind of did things on the side. Eventually, looking to moonlight, became interested in this franchise, had an opportunity to do something with my dad in Mandeville, and that kind of bifurcated into this thing. And all of a sudden, I found myself, a multi-unit franchisee in the States, focusing entirely on this business. So, yeah.
When we think of Jamaica as a brand itself, right? And you
Mm,
think of,
it's a strong one.
you know, yeah, yeah, right. And then you think of the many brands within Jamaica. We won't name them here, but the many brands. How does a brand like Juicy brand travel without losing itself? Because that is
Mm,
the concern that if you grow up with it, you have this not really taste like, or this not really come in like
mm,
what does that responsibility feel like? And, how do you ensure that it travels well?
mhm, mhm. You know, for our employee orientation, one of the first things we do is I attend every single one. And I tell the story, the 40 plus year history of Juicy Patties going back to Juki Chin with his mother's stove, which he still owns, by the way, right? To tell you the kind of guy he is, right? And the focus on consistency and quality at scale. From a 16-year-old with a vision for a better product to the success that now feeds all of us came from the simple idea of delivering an exceptional patty with exceptional service every time, right? So we take that very seriously, right? We think that is a core value, a core part of our value proposition, and a non-negotiable, right? We instill that in our employees and with our leadership. That's what we're all about, right? There are hundreds of places. There are over 500 places in New York City where you can buy a patty, right? Uh, so
You already answered my second question, which is, how does that compete in a place in New York where everywhere you turn there's a patty? So
So, another story that we like to use is, or an analogy is, think about Starbucks, right? There was a time in the United States where still you can get coffee anywhere. Every gas station, McDonald's, bodega, you name it. There's coffee everywhere, right? Diners and all that. But you don't know what you're getting. And the idea of Starbucks is to normalize that experience and make the experience exceptional. And I will go into Starbucks and I will pay $7 for a cup of coffee because I like the experience. I like knowing that's going to be the same thing every single time, right? I like the hearing my name, be able to sit down and get on the Wi-Fi and work for a couple of hours. I mean, the experience, the consistency, this is all a part of the product, right? So for us, it's not okay to sell an okay patty, right? An okay patty ruins the brand. When we opened the store in Fulton, the first store in Brooklyn and in New York, right? It went viral on TikTok, right? And pretty much the question was, is this the real juicy beef? And yes, it is, right? And that virality came from the brand equity that the Chin family built up, right? And if we don't maintain that brand equity, right, or that those brand values, we will find ourselves just another patty shop, right? And that won't work for us. The amount of money we're investing into these stores, into our employees, the growth that we're promising our employees, the scale that we are chasing for the country, the category that we're trying to create for Caribbean food, the responsibility that we've been blessed with, right, to take this cultural amalgamation of our history to the world after the world gave it to us, right? From the British, the indentured servants, Indians, the Chinese, and so forth, that brought their flavor profiles to the country. We put all that into the patty, and now we're bringing that same patty back to the world, right? So yeah, this is all extremely important for us, and we are, I think, one of the brands of Jamaica, if you will, right? Usain Bolt, Bob Marley, reggae music. I would like to put the Jamaican patty up there with them, and we are one of the preeminent Jamaican patty brands, right? So we take that responsibility seriously, and we have been admonished to take that brand seriously by our customers. There was, when we opened our first store in Florida, there was an elderly woman who came to the store, and we weren't even open yet, and she's like, "We have prayed for you, make sure." You know what I mean? So yeah, we don't take it lightly, to put it simply.
even in that, I think people, I think it gives a clue as to what it means. Like a grandma come up to you and say, "Me, I pray for you. Do I beg you? Make sure
Hmm.
son gets it right." It's not just
Exactly.
only being admonished. It's like the weight of the community is like, we want this to be successful. We're gonna
Hmm.
support you. Make sure you keep it right.
Hmm.
And at any point, is that weight something you're like, why? I will heap of pressure this and I'm gonna know if me can manage it. Has that thought ever come to you, or does it scare you, the weight of that?
Not at all. No, it excites me. Now, I take the responsibility seriously, right? But, like most entrepreneurs, right? It's all about what you can control, right? Focus on the things you control. You don't live in fear. You live in a place where you look for actions that you can take, right? So rather than waste energy on, pointless fears, we focus on how do we onboard our employees, right? How do we communicate these ideas? How do we set the customer values? How do we communicate to our community, to our customers, to our employees these values, right? And if we do that, if we focus on the details, making sure that you know every patty that we serve is a hot, flaky, fresh patty, right? Those fundamentals, then what's there to be afraid of? We're lucky to have this privilege. Pressure is a privilege. So say the tennis players, right?
Yeah. And again, you answered one of my question, which was what does actually protecting the integrity of the brand looks like? And that is how you train the employees, how you communicate, the brand and the responsibility of the brand, like in real time. It's not just theory. It's just like, what does this look like in theory? So
Mhm.
I'm in real decisions. So that's wonderful. Now, let's go back to, you said every Jamaican is an entrepreneur, right? And
Did I say that?
Um, I mean I mean, really and truly, like, I tell the story all the time. Like, I grew up selling ice because not all of my neighbors had electricity. So, you make money by using the old plastic containers, pushing them in the freezer and selling ice, or however other way you get
Mhm.
creative. I'm not saying that is the same as this, but was there anything in your upbringing, in your experience that prepared you or helped to prepare you for the role that you currently have and the responsibility that you have for multiple franchises within the US?
Sure. I mean, my father is an entrepreneur, right? He had multiple businesses, and I learned from him the power of relationships, the power of integrity, right? That currency is more valuable than money itself, right? You know, my mother as well. I mean, she was a very conservative Adventist woman, and you know, she trained us to have traditional values, right? So, and those things are worth their weight in gold in this space. Right? Coming to a city like New York, and everyone feels that New York is this jungle, this concrete jungle, and you have to be a certain way. And one of the ways that we differentiate ourselves is that we see the village within New York, right? For example, the landlords, right? It's a small community, right? From a certain perspective, the community is much smaller than you think. And whether you're in a small town or a large city, old-fashioned traditional values still travel well, right? So it's the same thing. It's just fundamentals, doing the basics well.
Yeah. Before I get into a little fun round, I wanted to go back to something that you said. It had escaped my mind, the brain now so fresh.
Mhm.
Um, You said something about, expanding the category or for Jamaican patties. Is that what you said? Or I'm gonna try to remember what you said. Something about
What did I say? Something about establishing a new category for Caribbean food, right?
yes. Talk to me a little bit about what what you mean by that and what your vision is when it comes to establishing this new category. What does that mean in actuality?
Well, there's a gap. There's a gap in the U.S. So you have Italian food has been normalized. Mexican food has been normalized, right? Caribbean food is still somewhat of a novelty, right? But it's much loved, right? And there's an opportunity to consolidate that attention and energy, right? And I think that a brand like Juicy Patties has a unique opportunity to be a part of that.
Okay. Let me pull on that string a little bit. So some people might say, um, in the process of Mexican culture being normalized, you have other people outside the culture profiting off the culture or the food than the people who themselves are the business owners who are from that culture. And I think that sometimes that could be a fear that Caribbean people might have, that it gets away from them. Someone else becomes more famous for their own culture than they are. So what do you say about what would you say to people who have those concerns?
It's valid. It's a valid concern. The thing that encourages me is that if you look at ownership, right, this is still a family-run business. Juicy has remained a family-run business throughout its history, right? And I think that is a another core value, right? I think that Juki's son is the one who is leading this charge in the States, and there's no plan to uh, sell this to private equity or have the anyone else but Jamaicans at the helm, right? I think that the Chin family is very big on legacy, and this is their baby. I know, even though it's grown and become an adult for sure, it's still their baby, right?
Yeah.
And they have selected franchisees, I think, who reflect and support those values, like myself, right? It's important that our values are aligned, right? And that is something that Juicy Foods Limited here in the States is focused on, just as Juicy Patties in Jamaica is.
Wonderful. All right. So we're going to have a little fun patty game. All right. So mild or spicy beef? What's your favorite?
I'm Jamaican, spicy. What you mean?
Cocoa bread or straight patty?
Depends on the mood. How hungry are
Mm,
you?
that is true. That is true. All right. Shrimp patty, oxtail patty, all kind of patty. When does innovation become violation? So which variation of the original beef you think is second best?
Second best. Oh wow. That's a good one. Hmm. Yeah, for me personally, I like curry chicken.
Mm, I think the chicken was going to be a second one. I'm a shrimp girl. Um, all right. If you could eat one patty version forever, which one would it be? I know you said you like spicy, but me know you can't manage spicy all the time. So, which patty would you eat forever if that was the only thing you could eat? Which version?
Oh man, probably the vegan spinach is probably the healthiest.
I'm telling you, that's what I was called, the veggie patty. Yes,
I would eat the vegan spinach, but I have a picture of my spicy beef on the wall that I look at.
I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh! All right, I'm gonna ask one next one. Like, this is an outlier, but okay. The best drink that you can drink to accompany a nice hot patty. What's that drink? You say, listen, nothing beat a patty and a drink.
Oh man, oh man. Well, if I'm gonna go with the tradition, the old folks, right, from long time, Diet Pepsi, right, or a Pepsi. But for me, oh man, probably a Ting is probably my go-to. I mean,
That's what
cola
I was
champagne
gonna
is good,
say.
but Ting. I mean, those commercials work, man.
The cola champagne. The thing, fine, but the cola champagne or any one of the D&G soft drinks would have
Mhm.
been my pick.
You remember
Wonderful.
you remember that commercial? "Give me the Ting with a doctor."
Good it was. Yes. But also what I also loved was like if I couldn't get, the soft drink because back then we call it aerated water. And it felt stronger, maybe because we were kids and it just felt like when you drink it, it had the fizz was a bit stronger. So
Mhm, mhm,
if I
mhm.
didn't feel like having a soft drink, I would definitely have a Juicy full box drinks. You know,
Orange.
yes. I had to be that or the pineapple. That's it.
Yeah,
That's what I was
yeah,
having.
yeah, yeah.
So, bringing me back to my days. So, as we wrap up, Franklin, you are very aware of the legacy. You carry it with pride. So pressure is responsibility and all of that. What is your hope for the next generation of Jamaican brands who are trying to establish themselves in the US, like Jamaica as a Jamaican entrepreneur leading this charge, right? Because you and I know that we're not shata brands in Jamaica. I know Juicy's in your purview right now, but you are leading that charge for other brands to follow, right? And so what is your hope for the growth of Juici and how that has downstream impacts for the country and the region, and for a new group of, you know, entrepreneurs to rise up and, you know, make Jamaica bigger than what it is. But, you know, I'm
Mhm.
biased because we're Jamaican. But
What's my hope? My hope is a more beautiful Jamaica, right? I would love to see Jamaica. It's sad to go home and see, you know, our infrastructure deteriorating, right? It's amazing that we're such a cultural superpower in the world, right? And as we start to export these brands, I would love to see that lift Jamaica economically, right? Maybe it's production facilities, placing more attention on Jamaica as a place for investment, right? A place for development, right? There's so many unique qualities about Jamaica beyond just its music and its athletes and its food, right? I mean the geographical location, right? As a port country, the large English speaking population, right? Just the natural resources, the beauty of the country. These are things that are underutilized, right? And I would love to see our emergence as a place of economic interest, not just, you know, a tourist destination.
I agree. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Franklin, for being on the podcast. It was a complete pleasure talking to you and catching up and walking down memory lane about all things Patty, but also, you know, really feeling, because Manangalai, first question I ask, you're Jamaican? Because I know that's how we feel about Juicy, right? Who's responsible for this child, you know, this baby? And it's that fear based in love, right? If you didn't love it, you wouldn't care who's running it, right? It
Right,
doesn't
right,
matter,
right,
you know.
right.
But when you care about it, you want to know that it's in good hands and it's going to be
This is
protected.
ours, right?
Yes, to understand the love is to understand that this is why people are borderline protective of what happens with it. So I'm glad it's in good hands, and I am so excited for the future. And most importantly, I am so glad that I don't have to go to Jamaica and buy a box of patty to come back up, buy a box of patty and come, you know, like my sister-in-law jokes with my brother-in-law when he's coming back. 2 box of patty is the price of admission, you know.
And make sure it's juicy.
Yeah, exactly, right? You know all the thing go, and I mean, so it's really exciting, and I mean, I'm laughing, but I'm serious, you
That's
know.
what the thing set
So
up.
yeah, it's serious.
Oh
It's
man.
serious. So I'm super excited. Congratulations. And I don't think people realize when you're away from home, it's the
Mhm,
food and these other things that feel you make you feel connected to home.
mhm,
So
mhm,
it's not just about going into the store. It's a memory when you bite into a patty, a conversation with a friend. And I think it's, you know, it's not to sound cheesy, but it's more than just I eat a patty, if that
mhm.
makes sense. So
Of course, of course.
yeah. So thank you for being on the show. It was wonderful to have you.
Mhm.
And as I love to say at the end of every episode, walk good.
Thank you so much. Well, good.